Part 76. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 752. The Lord of Thunder's disciples, no matter how big or small, each of them counts. Except for the Lord of Thunder himself, the two highest-ranking disciples, and the privileged Greet, the rest were all dragged into the wilderness. One person is responsible for a field, and there is a slight strange smell in the air. Aurora crouched down at the edge of the field he was responsible for. After half a month, his robes were wrinkled and his boots were covered in mud. The underwear and coat on my body all stank, and the underwear rubbed against my skin, making my whole body itch. After half a month, he began to slap a cleansing spell on his boots every time he took a step. He was scolded by the teacher. When I walked to the edge of the field, when the teacher wasn't paying attention, I secretly applied cleaning techniques on my boots. After half a day's work, when it's time to eat, take turns to pat your hands, clothes, and boots again. After working all day, dragging your tired body back to the campsite, you can tidy up. It is true that people fall very quickly. Just like this, I still have to be laughed at by the older brothers and sisters. Aurora, you are really spoiled and can't bear this little hardship. When we are adventuring in the wild, who will use the precious magic power for cleaning skills? Woohoo, I want to go back to Nevis, I want to go back to the Mage Tower, with Gretel. I only need to do experiments in the laboratory and meditate in the meditation room every day, clean and comfortable. In all these years, when has he ever experienced the hardships of living in the wilderness? Aurora. It's time to begin. Yes. He got excited and responded loudly. Then, close your eyes, meditate, recite mantras, and guide magic. Crack. A blue-white electric arc shot out from his hand and landed on two long poles lined up in a straight line, 20 meters apart. The top of the long wooden pole is equipped with a metal joint, and the bottom is guided directly to the ground with wire. An electric arc shot out, and the tops of the two long poles lit up at the same time. The third level spell of the evocation system, Lightning Beam, completed. Immediately, a skeleton plopped into the field, and 3 samples were randomly taken at 3 distances from the near, middle, and far distances from the point where the wire entered. Dig it out, package it, and send it to the edge of the field. In the shed next to it, the alchemists set out their instruments and began to quickly dry, weigh soil samples, add chemicals, boil, cool, filter, and set the volume. Record. Lightning Beam for the 3rd time. Released by a 6th level magician. Normal output. The nitrogen content of the soil near the center is 1.70 grams per kilogram of soil. The nitrogen content of the soil in the middle range is 1.47 grams per kilogram of soil. The nitrogen content of soil at a distance is 1.33 grams per kilogram of soil. The impact range of the lightning beam is 40*20 meters. Increase the total amount of nitrogen within the range. Aurora gasped on the side. He kicked higher and lower, moved to another field, and cast the spell again. If he doesn't finish the spell today, he won't let him go. Magicians of the evocation system, magicians who can release lightning spells, were tested in turn using various methods. Some cast lightning in the air, some cast spells on long poles, and some cast spells directly on the ground. Some directly chop, some attract cumulonimbus clouds, and then make the cumulonimbus clouds thunder and lightning. There is also a large bottle filled with water, with a discharge rod inserted on each side of the bottle to control the water flow to continuously spray upwards. Then discharge electricity into the air above the water surface, then drop litmus reagent into the water, and watch the water turn red. The Magic Council spared no effort in manpower and conducted intensive experiments by the Lord of Thunder's disciples. Soon, the council came to a conclusion. The existing magicians of the evocation system, except for the Lord of Thunder himself, exhaust all their spells every day and work hard to attract thunder every day, which can probably satisfy 1/20th of the nitrogen fertilizer required for the country's fields. And this group of people cannot all be busy triggering thunder. Evocation magicians are one of the most powerful and lethal factions in the Magic Council, and they are always fighting on the front line. Everyone is going to draw the thunder, and the fighting power in the front will have to be spared by the boss. It's enough to feed the parliament and the people related to the parliament, we have to feed the whole country. Are we thinking too much? Old Sam chewed his quill sadly. The nature of a magician is to love academics and advocate freedom. The council has issued a mandatory task, asking all evocation magicians to go to the fields to test the ability to induce thunder to add nitrogen fertilizer to the land. That's okay, everyone has the right to do experiments. Let them stay in the fields for 3.5 months, chopping every day, every month, on sunny days and on rainy days. Not to mention the contribution points that the parliament spent on this, the required coercive power was also a huge drain on the authority of the parliament. You know, the plastic magicians are very powerful in combat, and they are also the most powerful group of people when it comes to making trouble. They were blasted down for experiments, thanks to the words left by the Lord of Thunder before he left. Otherwise, we need to save less food. After all, there are so many nobles in the kingdom. We can't expect our family to worry about the God of War temple and the spring water temple. That won't work. Grom, the great magician, turned his head sadly. The necromancer is also a mage, a living person, not a lich. He also needs to eat and does not want to see the kingdom starving to death. And the important thing is, we are cooperating with the natural gods. As for those old guys from the natural gods, how can they endure it when they see hungry people all over the place? The growth of crops ultimately depends on them. Let's think of something else. Think of a way, the way won't come up in a short while. A large number of magicians were involved in the experiment, and at the same time, Aurora and most of the evocation magicians got a short vacation. But I'm back. Moss. Heat the hot water. Fill the bathtub. Get me some clothes. I want a good shower. Take a bath when I'm done. I want 2 invisible servants to wipe my back. Gretel looked at Aurora in surprise. After not seeing each other for half a month, Aurora's appearance completely changed. From top to bottom, her whole body looked like she had been fished out of a sauerkraut jar. Her blonde hair was messy and tangled, her clothes were wrinkled, and her boots were completely invisible. The whole body was covered with a layer of dust, and he walked by, one step at a time. The invisible servant followed behind and swept hard. Coupled with the sour smell all over the body, some people say that it may be fished out of pickled vegetables in the pit. What's wrong with you? Don't mention it. We were dragged to plow the fields. Plow the fields. After an hour and a half, Aurora was white and wrinkled from soaking, wearing silk pajamas, sitting in front of Greet's newly cooked hot pot. Pour down a plate of mutton, roll it a few times, and then quickly fish it out. Hiss, ha, he's lying dead. For the first time he was panting from the heat, breathing hard with his mouth open, and stuffing mutton slices into his mouth like a starving ghost. Chewing juices everywhere, but at the same time he didn't forget to speak vaguely. Chop the fields dozens of times a day, use the lightning beam to chop the fields, use the electric ring to chop, finish the electric shock ring, summon the electric claws and cumulonimbus. I have to use up all the magic every day. All of them, he complained bitterly. I can only secretly save a few cleaning skills to clean my clothes and shoes. Don't you have servants to serve you? Gretel was surprised. Impossible. When the council asks you to do work, it has to arrange for someone to serve you. That's for sure, but the work of servants and washerwomen is just that. The clothes can't be washed clean, the clothes can't be dried when they are hung out, and it happens to be cloudy and rainy for a few days. Hey, it's not as good as me. Take 2 shots with the cleaning technique. Judging from the miserable state you were in when you came in, your level of use of cleaning skills is just that. Gretel cursed and silently moved the peanut butter bottles, sesame oil bottles, and various sauce bottles one by one to Aurora. Leisurely, I put radish slices, cabbage leaves, mushrooms, and various vegetables into the mutton pot. There's nothing I can do about it. Eating too much mutton really makes me a little angry. I need to eat something light to temper it. Aurora devoured a dozen plates of mutton before collapsing with satisfaction. He lay half on the sofa beside him, letting the invisible servant squeeze his legs, and hummed feebly. It is said that we have to go, rest for 2 days, and then pull it up again. It will take 3.5 months to do this. It is said that it is up to us to increase the fertility of the soil. Rely on you. Do you rely on you to artificially trigger lightning to fix nitrogen in the soil? Gretel thought about it for a while, and suddenly felt that the painting was beautiful. Speaking of past lives, which country developed chemical fertilizers without relying on large-scale industrial production? We need to set up lightning rods all over the ground to attract thunder to apply nitrogen fertilizer to the fields. At least half of the people in the world starve to death. By the way, have any of you tried using other methods to produce nitrogen fertilizer? Do you have any idea? Aurora immediately jumped up from the sofa, staring directly at Gretel with bright eyes. Climbing out of the bathtub, I ate another big meal of hot pot. The red cheeks were so steamed that they deepened in color and were about to burn. It's a secret, you must find a way. I don't want to go to that damn place anymore. Let me squat on the edge of the farmland and chop the fields for 3 months. It's better to let me die. I probably won't die if I die, and the pain is really uncomfortable. The main thing is, instead of letting these energy-shaping mages lead thunder and fix nitrogen, let them take out the fertilizer industry. How to make industrial nitrogen? The earliest method that comes to my mind is the Haber nitrogen production method. Germany was forced to a desperate situation before World War I. It needed resources and had no resources. It was nothing. Haber, a strong chemist, came up with it. So what are the details? I definitely haven't learned it in books, but I should have mentioned it in my daily extended reading, the teacher's casual narration, the classmates' chats to show their knowledge, and the patient's words of joy, right? Gretel searched the memory bit by bit. It seems that synthetic ammonia can be produced by mixing nitrogen and hydrogen at a temperature of 600 degrees and a pressure of 200 atmospheres. As for how to produce a large amount of pure hydrogen, how to produce a large amount of pure nitrogen, and how to remove oxygen from the air, he was at a loss. It seems, as if, what kind of catalyst is needed for the reaction of hydrogen and nitrogen? What is it? 3,000 words. Add 2 more bonuses, complete. Ask for monthly votes during the double period. This month starting point monthly votes reach 2,000 votes, add 2 updates, reach 3,000 votes, add 2 more updates, and so on, add 2 updates for every additional 1,000 votes. The accumulated rewards will be added separately. Today, 774 votes were cast. Congratulations to everyone for accumulating 2 updates. There are still 804 votes short of 3,000 votes. Come on everyone. A little more than 1 day left. We'll definitely pay it back. Thanks to the Strong Sea Monster for the 1,500 starting coins reward. I was looking up information today about how much nitrogen fertilizer can be produced in the soil by how big a lightning bolt is. I checked 3 papers and n unrelated papers but couldn't find it. Then, I looked it up in the high school chemistry question bank. Ran away crying. Then, the difference in nitrogen content before and after fertilization was copied from another paper measuring soil nitrogen content. However, the nitrogen content of soil-growing wheat and soil-growing rice must be different. I am not responsible for the accuracy of the data. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 753. Sweat soaked the back of my clothes, and mud covered my trouser legs. Pastor Matthew raised his palm from the ground, faced the green field in front of him, and sighed in annoyance. He is cooperating with the Parliament to conduct planting experiments. Plant a wave of milk vetch in the field to quickly encourage growth, then plow it into the soil. This has always been an effective method for farmers to fertilize their fields. Of course, there is absolutely no rush to let the milk vetch stay in the field for the whole winter and then plant other crops next year. Pastor Matthew needs to use magic to speed up the rotting and fermentation of grass blades, and then measure the fertility of the land and plant another wave of crops. But the magic obviously cannot cover all the grass roots and seeds. Among the wheat seedlings spawned by the magic, milk vetch grows lushly, brazenly competing with the wheat seedlings for nutrients. Looking around, the brothers of the cult who were experimenting with alfalfa or soybeans also had the same problem. Moreover, the holy power of the priest of the God of nature is not unlimited. In fact, it is quite limited. Now, it seems that fertilization to promote the growth of pasture is a matter of greater losses than benefits. What should I do if the holy power is not enough? In the shed on the other side, Elderwood wiped the sweat from his white beard and asked the archmage who accompanied him. The Order of the God of Nature cooperated with the council. After conducting experiments during this period, the conclusion is that with a sufficient supply of spiritual potions and enough believers around to participate in prayer, it is probably, it seems, possible. The amount of food produced is less than half of the required amount. Holy power is a flaw. Someone has already thought of a solution, the Archmage comforted in a low voice. He vaguely heard that it was the Lord of Thunder and other legendary mages who went to find a solution, but he did not dare to say anything. What if it's not? Even if the news is really accurate, where is the legendary mage's tongue that anyone can chew on? He is not a legendary disciple. Even if he is a legendary disciple, he may not be favored by everyone. He could only vaguely reveal a little bit of information. The results will probably be available in a month or two. Come on, let's do another set of experiments. Even if the shortcomings of the holy power are made up, the fertilizer in the fields is still indispensable. So, when Aurora took the plan and paper given by Greet and handed them to the teacher, saying that this technical route could be tried, Archmage Carlyle is ecstatic. What, there will be ammonia in the digester? Is there also ammonia in feces and urine? Is it that kind of particularly pungent gas that can be dissolved in water and can be used to water the fields after being dissolved in water? Does it contain nitrogen? Nitrogen and water can be obtained by burning in pure oxygen, which proves that it contains hydrogen and nitrogen. So if we turn it upside down, when nitrogen and hydrogen react under high temperature and pressure, ammonia will also be produced. Very good. With this technical route, we can try it. Hydrogen. As long as there is water, you can have as much as you want. Nitrogen, as long as there is air, there is as much as you need. Wait a minute, let's rub our hands together, high temperature and high pressure, right? Pure hydrogen, pure nitrogen, right? All the high-level direct disciples of the Lord of Thunder have gone on missions. The 14th level Archmage Carlyle is the highest level disciple among the disciples who stayed in Nevis. Naturally, he started to shake people, gathered all his disciples, and rushed into the Tower of Babel. High temperature and high pressure, right? How many degrees is needed? Greet didn't say. He didn't say how much pressure. No, Aurora answered a little guilty. He watched Greet pour the ammonia for a while, then added the ammonia to water and poured it on a flower pot. Hold the soil in the flower pot with both hands and concentrate on casting. Well, no problem, ammonia does have an effect on promoting plant growth. Well, I'll do it again, Oro, you can help with the soil composition measurement dash. Aurora cried and went to do the composition determination. Why, the most troublesome things are always left to me. Is this the boss's prerogative? For a paper like this, I can only say that the part about ammonia is indeed useful has some basis. As for what kind of high temperature and high pressure is required to synthesize ammonia from hydrogen and nitrogen, Gretel only said, it will probably take high temperature and high pressure, but did not specify the specific temperature or pressure. With the conditions of Gretel's mage tower, it was impossible to conduct experiments under too high pressure. It's okay, I'll try. You, Archmage Carlyle named several disciples in one breath. Don't be stunned, start using your hands. Adjust the magic circle, build a protective force field, and pump out the gas. Experiment in groups and test different temperatures and pressures for each person. Heating to 500 degrees Celsius, 20 atmospheric pressure, the first combustion test begins. 500 degrees Celsius, 30 atmospheric pressure, second combustion test. The result of the extreme pile of manpower was that on the day when the evocation mages were summoned and put into the second phase of the test, Archmage Carlyle submitted a report. There is a plan for artificially synthesizing ammonia. Irrigating the ground with ammonia water can replace nitrogen fertilizer and promote plant growth. The magicians cheered in front of the carriage that was gathering to go to the fields. Finally, I can stop going to the fields. Finally, I can stop squatting in the fields and throwing lightning bolts every day. Even if you have to work, you might as well squat in a laboratory. Even if you squat in a factory, outputting magic power to the maximum and sorting out the flow of magic power, it is better than working in the fields. As for how to push ammonia synthesis in the laboratory to large-scale synthesis, how to increase production to meet the needs of fields across the country, how to reduce costs as much as possible so that ordinary farmers can use them in the farming process, these remain to be explored. However, as long as the Parliament piles up manpower, a large number of problems can be solved in a short period of time. Everyone, let's move together. The report was sent to the review meeting. After being verified, several review members made a decision together. At this time, it's better to have more technical routes and more ways to explore. Group people into groups. Conjuration system, evocation system, protection system, change system, prophecy system. Each group has one archmage above level 10. The conjuration department is responsible for the magic circle, the protection department is responsible for building the force field, the evocation department outputs magic power, and the change department controls the reaction process. The prophecy department is next to it and is responsible for recording statistics and sensing the dangers of experiments at any time. Both the transformation system and the necromancer system have a group of people. Whether it's using puppets or skeletons, in short, get close to the scene and let inanimate things do the dangerous work of adding materials. Don't get close to the magician personally. By the way, bring over a bunch of medical mages. Go to the God of War temple next door to hire people. For such a large-scale experiment, the healing power must keep up. Of course, if the prophecy magician can predict the success rate of the experiment and provide guidance on modification methods, the council will also welcome it. But it is not mandatory. The precious power of prophecy must be used on the edge. Alchemists of the transmutation system know very well how many modifications are required to make a new substance. The road from laboratory preparation to mass production is also full of various shattering, fires and explosions. Boom. Boom. Look, it exploded again. In the distance, a certain archmage shouted angrily. I told you to seal it well. Seal it well. Don't you know that hydrogen will explode when it meets oxygen? Amid all the stumbles, explosions, roars and quarrels, the council's research and development work on nitrogen fertilizers was racing forward like a train about to derail. Several times he was about to have an accident, or had already been in an accident, but he was saved by powerful magicians using various protective magics. The fragments were blocked, the air waves of the explosion were blown into the air, and the strange gas was blown away by strong winds. Of course, there are also those who have extremely wet hands and are so unlucky that even the prophecy mage failed to warn them, and even the skeletons and alchemical golems in front were swept away by the accident. Fortunately, with the help of medical mages and priests, most people were able to be saved. After an extreme operation and unlimited manpower, the parliament actually took this path. Coke is burned with coal, and water vapor is blown into the coke for combustion. After a few operations, a large amount of ammonia is produced. On the other side, the great magician with the transformation system worked hard to introduce ammonia gas into the water, doing various tricks. I tried countless methods, but in short, I finally came up with solid nitrogen fertilizer. On the day when the experiment was declared successful, cheers came from the top of Igor Peak to the experimental site and then to the experimental field in the mountainous area behind Igor Peak. There is nitrogen fertilizer. There is nitrogen fertilizer. As long as there is enough coal and coke, there is enough nitrogen fertilizer. The magicians of the plasticity department threw their high cylinder, low cylinder, wide-brimmed, narrow-brimmed, soft top, and hard flat top hats into the sky one after another, shouting very loudly. Finally freed. Finally I don't have to chop dirt every day. I can finally go back to the laboratory to do research, and I don't have to stay on the edge of the field anymore. The magicians of the transformation department quietly slipped away and hid their names. In addition to making solid nitrogen fertilizer, someone also had an idea and applied for an experiment. Mix the newly made solid nitrogen fertilizer with struvite and carnal light products in proportion. Take it to the field and conduct growth-stimulating experiments for the priests of the god of nature. Mix according to the proportion of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium measured in the soil. Mix according to the proportion measured in the manure. Mix and spread directly into the field. After mixing, mix it evenly with the manure and then spread it on the field. According to the induction of the priest of the god of nature, at different stages of root growth, leaf growth, and fruiting, they are mixed in different proportions and then spread into the fields. The effect was unexpectedly good. Pastor Matthew, who finally got a short break and was able to visit Greet in the city, described to him happily. 1 part artificial fertilizer and 1 part compost, mix them evenly and spread them on the field. The effect is more than twice that of compost. As long as carnalite and struvite keep up, at least we won't have to worry about fertilizer during this great famine. Gretel. So it's really Jinke law, 1 bag can carry 2 bags. 3,000 words. There are still 3,000 words left in the afternoon, half an extra update completed. You guys are amazing. Yesterday, I received 928 monthly tickets. So far today, I have received another 168 monthly tickets. When the number reaches 3,000, there are only 496 left. During the double monthly pass period, if you ask for another monthly pass, if you reach 3,000 starting point monthly passes, you will get 4 additional passes next month. Excluding rewards and extra updates. Thanks to Atkihazuyi for the reward of 5,000 starting coins. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 754. Fertilizer crisis averted. Nitrogen fertilizer is available, potassium fertilizer can be used to toss minerals, and phosphate fertilizer is waiting for the sea ships to pull back the struvite. The priests of the god of nature are still busy at work, applying a small amount of fertilizer to encourage it to grow a little longer, sleeping and praying for natural recovery, and then applying a small amount of fertilizer tomorrow to encourage it to grow a little more. The greatest balance must be achieved between the use of holy power, the natural recovery of the land, and the increase in production and income. Although some people have found a solution to the gap in holy power, they cannot waste it casually. Who knows how much this method cost? But other than that, the lives of other magicians in the council have gradually returned to normal. Except for the nitrogen fertilizer plants that are still blooming everywhere, and the magicians who guided the construction of the plants are following around, the magicians who participated in the large-scale experiments before can now go back to their respective homes and do their own work. Mage Nordmark. We are back. Master Norwood took 2 disciples, one higher and one lower, back to the Mage Tower. Full of travel dust, face full of fatigue. Thankfully, the task of measuring fields, measuring minerals, measuring everything is finally over. Are there any tasks you want me to complete recently? If not, I want to take a nap. Gretel. I'm back too. Aurora was also returned to the Mage Tower, and continued to immerse herself in research and meditate hard. Gretel has advanced to level 7, and Lynn has advanced to level 7. He can't fall too far behind. Gretel is very happy. The Mage Tower was finally almost full again. It was no longer like the previous days. He and Bernard were the only 2 people living in such a huge Mage Tower, and there was no one else. Although safety is still guaranteed, Moss can control the tower spirit to automatically close the door, but there are only 2 people's footsteps in the tower all day long, which makes it quite scary to live in. What? Invisible servant? Invisible servants all use floats. It's great that you are all back. The food has been prepared, including porridge and boiled mutton if you want, he greeted him happily. Take a bath and have a good sleep, and then Mr. Norwood, I have something I need your help with. What, in just a few days, you've come up with something new? Aurora turned her head silently. Not only is it fresh stuff, Greet has been getting all the nitrogen fertilizer out these days, okay. Although he just gave an idea and the rest was done by a large team of people, but sometimes, ideas and direction are the most difficult things. Master Norwood ate a great meal and slept well. Then, he began to make various things according to Gretel's requirements. First, make a gel. Yes, it's the same agar as before, insert a bone into it. The agar doesn't need to be too thick, it just needs to be able to solidify into a shape, okay. Come on, there are a lot of bones here, make an agar cube for each one. Here are the blood vessels, aorta, pulmonary artery, carotid artery, superior vena cava, brachial vein, take a section of each and make a square with agar. This is the pectoralis major, the rectus abdominis, the gluteus maximus. Master Norwood's eyes widened. I said, boss, what are you doing? What do you want to do by stuffing these meats and bones into agar? Of course it is to save data for CT. Greet smiled. The structure of the human body is extremely complex, and the densities of various tissues are different. It is very troublesome to scan the CT scan and save the data. If you pick out the bones, muscle tissue, and blood vessels individually and scan them again, there will be no interference in the information. Agar is a cube with uniform density, and it can fix tissues in one position, which is very convenient. Well, we have to find a way in the future to get Master Norwood to make formalin. By the way, how is formaldehyde made? What was it and what was the reaction? What are the reaction conditions? Gretel worked hard to dissect and scan. Master Norwood and his students worked hard to cook sea stone flowers and agar cubes. Bernard worked hard and cut into the leg of lamb relentlessly. Well, not to mention, after cutting the leg of lamb for half a month, according to the barbarian himself, his strength has become more restrained and the precision of his control has also improved a lot. I guess if it lasts half a year or a year, maybe I can reach the threshold for upgrading. Anyway, now, Oak Grove Hospital has purchased a large amount of fish and meat. The barbarian security guards in the hospital are not patrolling, each with a large kitchen knife, cutting the meat in separate shifts. And Bernard has one more outreach job. Every day when you go to work, go to any free spellcaster and ask them to throw a freezing ray into these meats and fishes so that the barbarians can practice. Greet said he was happy to see the results. In fact, if he clocked in on time that morning and lost the freeze ray job, he wasn't shy about completing the job himself. The days passed slowly, and the weather became hotter and hotter. When the jackets were changed to single clothes, and the barbarian security guards of Oak Forest Hospital frequently poured cold water and began to complain that the hospital did not order ale, a horse on horseback hurriedly stopped at the entrance of the hospital, and the knight rushed in quickly. Mage Nordmark. Can I ask you a favor? Greet is reading in the consulting room. Today's elective surgeries have been completed, and there are no emergency cesarean sections to be performed yet, so there is no need for him to perform pressure on the students. There are no special patients coming. The therapists in the outpatient department try their best to deal with them. He emerged from the consulting room. The visitor is an acquaintance, Taylor Dumfries, a 5th-level mage of the transformation system. Well, when Gretel went to solve the mithril problem a few years ago, he was at level 5, and he is still at level 5 now. Gretel understood this, as the magic level was not that easy to upgrade, especially for mages whose arcane level was not high. Mage Dumfries was only a 2nd-level arcanist back then, and his arcane level had lagged behind his magic level, making advancement difficult, which was normal. However, he came over in a hurry, still wearing the familiar language proficient ring on his head. What's wrong? Are you still with the dwarves? Wizard Dumfries' face was full of words. He sold himself to pay off his debts and stationed in the Mithril district for 2 years. He finally paid off the debt for blowing up the laboratory. As a result, it hasn't been long since I returned to Nevis. Boom. Just, very desperate. Fortunately, garrisoning the Mithril district is hard work. It's hot, noisy, the research conditions are not good, and the dwarves are difficult to deal with. Master Dumfries relied on his previous work experience to successfully apply to sell himself again to pay off his debts. Unfortunately, the dwarves were particularly troubled this time and have been on strike for 2 days. Master Dumfries tried every possible means to persuade, make promises, and even spend his own money to buy bread and meat for them, but he failed to appease them. Considering that reporting a problem and asking a high-level mage to communicate, persuade, or crush him would result in a lower job evaluation and longer service time, Dumfries decided to use his own connections to solve the problem. After thinking about it, among the people he knew, he had the best relationship with the dwarves, and the one most likely to make the dwarves obey their orders was the mage Nordmark. So what's going on? Greet asked him to sit down curiously. Seeing that the front of his mage robe was soaked, he poured him a cup of tea and threw a ball of cold air into it. Master Dumfries took the water glass, raised his neck, and drank it down. Alas, those dwarves can't listen to me. No matter how I negotiate with them, they don't pay attention. They want ale, 10 barrels of ale a day, and they won't work without ale. Don't they know that Nevis has banned brewing? Yet. Gretel handed him the second glass of water with sympathy on his face. He was fully involved in this matter. According to the prediction of the legendary mage, the year without summer is coming. The Parliament went all out to raise food, prohibiting alcoholic beverages, especially grain alcoholic beverages such as ale. These are all combination punches. Once one punch is struck, the other punches have to follow. Any shortcomings in any one will lead to a loss of effect. Didn't you tell them that that was the rule of the council? Moreover, the council should have also informed the dwarf royal court that a great famine is coming, so go all out to stock up on food and drink less wine. I told them. The word decadent was written all over Master Dumfries' body. But they said that the council is in charge of humans, magicians, not dwarves. Dwarves can't do their jobs without wine, and dwarf masters can't produce good works without wine. The council is waiting for them to hit something. Even if the task of smelting mithril mines is reduced, the council still has a lot of things for them to do. For example, boilers, water pipes, reactors. Recently, a lot of tasks have been assigned, and it is said that they are all for manufacturing ammonia production equipment that is urgently needed by the Parliament. They are all delivered within a time limit and require quality assurance. The dwarves cannot cause trouble at this time. Mage Nordmark, you have a good relationship with the dwarves, and they are willing to listen to you. Look. This magician, who is no longer young, looked at Gretel almost pleadingly. Can you help me, persuade them? Alas, the character of the dwarves is indeed difficult to deal with, and the council's requirements need to be completed as soon as possible. Greet thought for a while. Give me some time. I'll arrange things and bring some things. If I can walk far enough, I'll follow you there tomorrow. He rushed to the obstetrics and gynecology ward like a wind. Check all the patients, and those who can be anatomized in advance are ordered to do so in advance. No more patients will be admitted tomorrow. Then, he returned to the mage tower and sorted out a bunch of medicines and bacterial culture supplies. Anavi, how's the recent summary of new drug trials? Show it to me. Streptomycin, or suspected streptomycin. It can effectively kill Mycobacterium tuberculosis and is effective in the treatment of tuberculosis. When he went to the Mithril district before, he observed that many dwarves had lung problems, and the disease was contagious. Although he can now kill bacteria at targeted locations, he cannot chase down and treat the dwarves on the other side of the sea, as far away as the Blackgate Peninsula. If it is confirmed that this drug, which is suspected of being streptomycin, is effective in treating dwarf tuberculosis and other types of pneumonia, we can at least communicate with them about this and let them work hard. 3,000 words. Add 3 more bonuses, complete. Ask for monthly votes during the double period. This month starting point monthly votes reach 2,000 votes, add 2 updates, reach 3,000 votes, add 2 more updates, and so on, add 2 updates for every additional 1,000 votes. The accumulated rewards will be added separately. Congratulations to everyone, you have accumulated 2 updates, there are still 220 votes short of 3,000 votes. Come on everyone. It's the last 4 hours. Another 220 votes will give you 2 more updates. We'll definitely pay it back. Thanks to Ed for the 5,000 starting coins. Thanks at its GU's reward of 100 starting coins. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 755. Chapter 754, Gretel, the dwarf reputation admirer, Nordmark, is here. Gretel simply stopped the operation for a day and visited Mithril Valley with Master Dumfries. Along the stream between Eagle Peak and Clark Peak, less than halfway up the climb, I heard a huge noise coming from above. The hammer strikes the anvil, the bottom of the cup strikes the table. A large group of dwarves pounded the table, beat the benches, and sang in unison. The mead is inexhaustible, and the blessings spread to the people. The prince's son, the mighty warrior. Pick up the iron axe and attack the powerful enemy. Cut the messengers of false gods into dust. Oh! Wizard Dumfries covered his eyes in pain. They are making trouble again, they must have drank up the little bit of ale stored in the Mithril district. Greet also wanted to cover her forehead. Listening to this sound, the dwarves are indeed on strike, and they are too drunk, right? How many decibels does such a loud noise have to be? 80. 100. 120? Help, he doesn't want to go among the dwarves. His ears. By the way, which magic can be used to add a soundproof cover to yourself and reduce the surrounding noise? Appa scratched his hooves unhappily and snorted. Obviously, the monsters that have been walking in the wilderness for many years are not used to the excessive human noise. If it hadn't been carrying Gretel and Bernard on its back, the silver moon deer would have run away long ago. Bernard. Boss, don't worry, the barbarian replied loyally. I will help you stop the drinking. All the drinking, elbow fighting, and arm wrestling are all directed at me. Gretel wanted to bang his head on the antlers. The huge silver moon deer quickly attracted the attention of the dwarves. Several dwarves rushed out of the tavern, jumped onto the high platform to take a look, and rushed back after a moment, shouting something. Gretel only knew that the singing was disturbed. As for what they were shouting, he couldn't hear clearly. But the effect was very good. The dwarves rushed out with a rumble, bypassing the Dumfries wizard who was leading the way, and went all the way to Appa, surrounding Gretel. Mage Nordmark. Dear Mage Nordmark. Friends of the dwarves. Go and clean up the tavern. Run up and tell me about you. Clean the VIP table, wipe away the wine-stained meat and bones, Mage Nordmark likes to be clean. Sitting on the phantom horse in front, Master Dumfries, less than 2 meters away from Gretel. I'm still here. I'm still here. Don't pretend you can't see me. Go around me directly, as if I were a stone on the ground. Fortunately, I was riding a phantom pony, a creature summoned by magic, so it would not be frightened. If I were riding an ordinary horse, you would be shocked by the noise. Gretel also fell on the back of the silver moon deer. Fortunately, Appa is 2 meters tall at the shoulders, which is much taller than a dwarf. The dwarves had to straighten their arms and jump up hard to take pictures of his hanging feet. Otherwise, I'm afraid I will be ripped off by you. But it was impossible for Gretel to stay on the deer's back and watch the dwarves from above. He pressed Bernard's arm with one hand to stabilize his body, stretched out his head, and waved to the dwarves below. Spread out. Spread out. Let me jump down. Jump down, the dwarves below laughed. A dwarf with reddish-brown hair and a beard braided down to his chest opened his arms and then hit his chest hard twice. Mage Nordmark, just jump down. We can catch you. This is not something that can be tolerated. A group of short guys with short arms and legs. I'm afraid that if I jump down, I'll ride on your necks. In the stalemate, it was Bernard who saved his boss. The barbarian pressed the deer's back, jumped down lightly, and accurately inserted himself into the gap between the dwarves. Then he patted Appa's neck to make it quiet, and stretched out his hand to Gretel. Boss, I'll pick you up. Gretel fell sideways, and Bernard put his hands under his armpits and lifted him down easily. The dwarves laughed and squeezed a little closer to both sides, giving way to let his feet land on the ground, and then surged up again. Mage Nordmark, you are here. You haven't seen us for a long time. Serve the wine, serve the wine, serve the wine. The distinguished guests are here today, and they must have a good meal. That mage over there, serve the wine. Wizard Dumfries thought desperately, only at this time can you see me in your eyes? Can't remember my name, just that mage over there? The human ball, or in other words, the human cake with 2 chopsticks stuck in it, slowly wriggled forward. After a long time of crawling to the tavern, Greet was pushed to the deepest part of the tavern, in the middle of the rammed earth platform that was half a person tall, where the elders and high-level professionals sat at the VIP seats. With a bang, a large glass of ale half a foot in diameter and over a foot high, billowing with white foam, was placed directly in front of him. The familiar big elbow with long forearms and thick thighs followed and hit. Gretel could only be thankful that Bernard also joined the king selecting team and also bore the honorary title of the dwarves. With Bernard by his side, at least someone would help him digest these things. Then, there was a thud next to him, and a dwarf with a grey beard sat down. He raised his glass high and shouted loudly to the dwarves filling the tavern. Cheers to the mage Nordmark! Cheers to our friends! Cheers! The dwarves roared together, deafeningly. Gretel could only be thankful that he reacted quickly enough and had already set up a sound barrier for himself. Hell, this magic was specially designed to deal with sonic attacks. Oh no, the dwarves started singing. The mages from far away came across the ocean and came from afar. Carry the gifts of nature and enter the kingdom of the rock people. He pointed at random, and the black machinery spit out white smoke, beating the ore into fine iron. He activated the vines, washed away the dirt in the lungs, and brought new life to the warriors. To the left, right, in front, throughout the tavern, the dwarves were arming themselves and singing in unison. To Gretel's left, Master Dumfries looked at him enviously, the envy in his eyes almost shining like stars. Participate in the Dwarf King choosing battle. Made into songs by the dwarves. With the average lifespan of a dwarf, Gretel's deeds will probably be sung for hundreds of thousands of years. Gretel wrinkled his forehead in pain. If he hadn't been surrounded by people in the center, he would have almost run away. It's so humiliating to be sung in front of someone like this. You were not like this when I came here last time. When I came back from the wilderness last time and came to visit you and wash your lungs, you were still fine. Even though they invited me to drink, they still didn't sing around me. Help, who will rescue me from the siege? He endured a carol on pins and needles, barely took a sip of wine, thank God, only one sip was enough, and Bernard could do the rest, and finally completed the task. My brain is buzzing, I feel like I've been hit by a mental attack, and I'm almost dead. Finally, when the banquet was over, Master Dumfries watched in surprise as Gretel suddenly recovered and became lively. He dragged several dwarves on the high platform into the room. Wizard Dumfries followed closely and winked at him desperately. Tell them. Tell them. Tell them, stop drinking, the famine is coming soon. Greet did not act according to his ideas. He raised his hand and took out a square box and opened the lid. The box was filled with 2 stacks of petri dishes. On the other side of the box, among the sponges, there was a jar, trembling, like jelly. After researching during this period, I finally found a way to treat a certain lung disease of dwarves. Gretel looked at the dwarves in front of him with a smile. After a period of clinical trials, this drug has shown good efficacy in humans suffering from similar diseases. I have free time today, so I will rush over to deliver the medicine. So this is the new drug. 7 or 8 heads came together. The leader was Vigilant, a disciple of Master Tarbot, who had also dealt with Gretel for a long time before. Together with him, he escorted Master Tarbot back to his country, and later returned to the Kingdom of Kent and continued to preside over the Mithril district. The dwarf watched with his own eyes as Gretel suctioned the teacher's sputum, developed an oxygen inhalation machine to allow the teacher to breathe oxygen, and tried every means to study the lung washing technique. Now Greet took out something new. Without any doubt, he reached for the dishes. How to use it? Eat it directly. Ah, this is not medicine. Gretel quickly stopped. This is something to test whether you have this kind of germ in your body, or in your lungs. If there is, I can use this medicine to treat it. If not, it can't be treated. Who comes first? I. 7 or 8 hands were raised together. Vigilant had already turned around and scanned the furniture in the room. Do you need to clean your lungs? Do you want me to find a place to lie down? That's not necessary. Greet quickly arranged a petri dish. Summon the mage's hand, dig out the culture medium from the big jar, and put a piece of it in each petri dish. Then, a row of mage hands were summoned, each of which transformed into the shape of a small bowl. Everyone, go outside the room to an open space. 1 person each, spit in it. It's best to spit out the phlegm deep in the throat. This is the most accurate measurement. Hey, Spitter, don't face others at all times. Emma, luckily I acted quickly and cast a bubble spell on myself, Bernard and the Dumfries mage. With this thing here, it can at least block the droplets. What? Did the dwarves themselves infect each other? Please, there are so many people working in the mines, eating and living together, drinking heavily and singing loudly. If you want to be infected, you have already been infected. He poured sterile saline into each mage's hand. The mage's hand transformed into a ball, bouncing up and down, left and right, like a meteor. Stir well, if you don't have a centrifuge, it's up to you. After stirring, apply it on the culture medium according to the method of bacterial culture. Add a small amount of streptomycin solution, close the lid, and label each person's name. Then he gathered all the culture media, took a deep breath, and activated the magic. Bacteria growth. Sorry, I just went down to do nucleic acid, and the update is a little late. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. Please give me a guaranteed monthly pass. Thanks to @Red Comet Mars for the reward of 10,000 starting coins. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 756. Chapter 755, Toxins are like alcohol, and the more you drink, the worse you get. Give me a ban on alcohol for everyone. 10,000 rewards plus 4 updates. 7 or 8 heads came together to look at the results in the petri dish. A blur of green light swept across, and on the glass floor that was originally clean and only covered with a layer of culture medium, lumps appeared quickly. Milky white, beige, lumps of various shapes. On the top of the mass, there are small bumps one by one, clustered together thinly, high in the center and low around. Wow, what are these? Vigeland reached out to poke him, but Greed slapped him away. He had no choice but to stretch his neck to see more clearly. A circle after a circle, a flat ball after a flat ball, or a strange puddle with blurred edges. Granular, nodular, cauliflower-like. Gretel repeated it using medical terms with a straight face. Vigeland looked at him blankly. Where's the green? Cauliflower? These things are not green at all. How do they look like cauliflower? The cauliflower we are talking about is cauliflower, the white kind, not the green broccoli. Greed thought depressingly that it was probably too cold on the Blackgate Peninsula to grow cauliflower, so the dwarves didn't eat it at all. That's not the point. Look, these bacteria are the ones that multiply in your lungs and cause you pain. Vigeland, Obas, Aishali, he pointed at the names of the people on the petri dish. One by one they shouted. You all have this kind of thing in your lungs. You are all sick. Cough. Cough, phlegm. Some people will have a fever. They will sweat profusely while sleeping. In severe cases, they will cough up blood, chest tightness, and chest pain. Are there any? When he called a name, a dwarf lowered his head silently, not daring to look into his eyes. Vigeland whispered. We dwarves are as strong as rocks. Being as strong as a rock is the only way you can survive to this age and still work. Greed lectured him with a straight face. Do you know what this disease looks like in humans? Those with weak bodies will die in their teens, those with strong bodies will become thin, stooped, coughing, and unable to work until they are in their 30s. Live. Seeing that the dwarves all showed disdain, as if saying only humans are so useless, Gretel strengthened his tone. Moreover, this disease can also be contagious. It can be transmitted to your pregnant women, your babies, your injured and weak warriors, your old people. Well, actually forget about the elderly. With the dwarves' living habits of gathering together in caves and poor air circulation, the elderly who live to old age may have already been infected. His tone became more severe with each sentence. The dwarves were finally trained to be honest. You bump me, I bump you. Finally, it was Representative Vigeland who spoke. So how to treat this disease? If we all remove the disease, it would be too expensive. Yes, it's too expensive. Whether it is pneumonia or tuberculosis, as long as it is a disease that is recognized by the healer and included in the magic model, remove disease can perfectly treat it. However, the magic level of remove disease is level 3, which means that only priests of level 5 or above can release it, and not many can be released in a day. And among 100 dwarves, there will not be a single priest. Among 100 dwarf priests, there will definitely not be a third level or above priest. Lung disease can still be contagious, as long as you don't cure everyone in one go, treat a few here and then infect them again. Gretel looked at them confidently. Of course there is a way. If there is no way, why would he go all the way? Did you see it? He pointed to the blank spot in the center of the colony in the petri dish, indicating to the dwarves to take a closer look. When cultivating germs, I dropped a newly developed special drug on some parts of the culture medium. You see, the bacteria cannot grow on the part where the drug was dropped. This shows that this special drug has inhibitory effects. The effect of killing germs. So can it be used by us? Vigeland started to look around. How to use it? Drink it? Or spray it into the lungs? Or, like you did when you treated us before, mix it with salt water and pour it into the lungs, and then pump it out? Gretel. Very good, very powerful, the dwarf's imagination is really active. But unfortunately, streptomycin, maybe streptomycin, Master Tower has not yet made an oral version. As for spraying it into the lungs, or perfusing the lungs, I'm sorry you can figure it out. The principle of medical treatment is a bit like a Cam's razor, do not increase the entity unless necessary. If intramuscular/subcutaneous injection is possible, intravenous injection is not necessary. If intravenous infusion is possible, intravenous injection is not necessary. It can be minimally invasive without surgery. Pulmonary perfusion is such a big operation and the risks are so high. Every time I perform lung cleansing on you, I am always on tenterhooks and ready for various emergencies. Several times, I have to rely on magic to pull you back. Besides, tuberculosis is one of the contraindications to lung lavage. You can't just pour the solution into people's lungs just because streptomycin is available. It must be said that Mr. Vigeland, with his rich imagination, perfectly avoided the correct answer. He took out another box from the space bag and opened it, revealing the suit inside. A row of syringes and a bottle of saline. A row of small glass bottles containing medicinal powders were lying in a box with ice cubes, refrigerated at low temperature. The top of the small glass bottle was sealed with a thin rubber skin, exactly the same as in Gretel's memory. This potion is injected, Greet said slowly. I want to calculate your weight to determine how much dose you need. Come one by one, weigh yourself and show me. Take off that iron wrist guard. Hundan, don't take off your pants. The chicken is flying and the dog is jumping, the chicken is flying and the dog is jumping. The corners of Dumfries' mouth twitched as he watched. He finally knew why Gretel had such a good relationship with those dwarves. It would have been impossible for him to lower his posture and go straight to the dwarves, laughing and scolding them. Hey, don't kick me. Of course Gretel couldn't really kick him. He wasn't stupid. The dwarves were all stocky and their muscles were as hard as rocks. There was a high chance that a kick would twist his own foot. He directed the dwarves to line up and cross the scale, and after getting an estimate of everyone's weight, he began to tinker with potions. Line up. One by one, roll up your sleeves and expose your arms. The thickest piece of meat on the outside of your upper arm. Vigeland, come here first. Hey, relax, relax. The needle slipped on the skin and became crooked. If you waste a needle, you will waste a syringe. No, wait, the needle can still be repaired. Time is money, my friend. Greet called out the gremlin for the first time in a long time. A golden gold coin was thrown over, and then he pointed at the needle and gave an order. Gold, fix it. Master Dumfries. You are a mage, a mage. Even if you are not a transformation mage, with your mental power, it is not difficult to twist this needle back to its original shape. If it doesn't work, can you give me the gold coins? It's okay if I come and help you repair it? Although, when he saw Gretel throwing a bunch of raw materials and squeezing the little monsters to the limit, he silently changed his mind. Then, he watched Gretel wave his hand and throw a higher demonized weapon at all the syringes in the needle box. The master of Dumfries was heartbroken once again. Ah, what a luxury! Advanced demonized weapon is a third-level spell. Although it can support one row of arrows and other small weapons at a time, this is no reason for you to throw away spells. Greet had already picked up a new syringe. Pump the saline, poke the bottle, inject, shake, and pump again. Then, he approached the dwarf with a syringe. Come, let's do it again. His tone was sweet and his smile was sinister. Relax. If you bend my needle again this time, I will throw a weakening ray. I don't believe that the weakening ray can't relax your muscles. Vigilant and the others didn't dare to breathe. They offered their right upper arm deltoid muscles one by one and were poked by Greet. Seeing Gretel starting to pack things, the dwarf at the end cheered heartily. Finally done. Let's go out and drink. No drinking, Gretel suddenly raised his head. You must not drink alcohol after taking this medicine. Just drink wine and leave immediately. Well, although he really didn't know whether this drug, which was made from something that looked like streptomycin, could have a disulfiram-like reaction with alcohol, but... However, be lenient if you anticipate the enemy. Anyway, he made the potion, and he has the final say whether you can drink or not. He wanted to see who dared to argue with him, the discoverer of penicillin, the person who washed the lungs of dwarves, the inventor of cowpox and rabies vaccines, and the director of the invention of streptomycin, about whether he could drink alcohol. As expected, no dwarf dared to argue. Under Greet's condescending gaze with his hands on his hips and a sneer on his face, no dwarf even dared to run out to get a drink. However, the dwarf who was the first to shout, "Let's go out for a drink when we're done," reacted the fastest. He turned his eyes and immediately stepped forward with a smile. "Dear Master Nordmark. You have something to say." Greet shivered and quickly applied a new layer of cold and heat resistance on himself. "What's the matter? How many people in our mine do you think will get this disease? It's rare that you come here, can you check everyone? This can be done." Greet looked at him with admiration and nodded slightly. The dwarf rushed out. "Get in line, get in line. Come out and get in line. Everyone gets a clean cup, spits in it, and writes his or her name on the cup. Master Nordmark is here to treat everyone." Queuing up, spitting, doing bacterial culture, Gretel sincerely thanked the world for having the magical ability to rapidly produce bacteria, taking pictures and identifying and screening patients. Then, most of the middle-aged and above dwarves, as well as some young dwarves, lined up in formation and received a shot in the arm one by one. Those who have received this injection are not allowed to drink. 2 injections a day, and I will leave the powder. Greet cast a loudspeaker spell on himself, allowing the sound to spread throughout the camp. 1 shot early, 1 shot late. Take it for 7 days. After 7 days, I will come again to test the treatment effect. Whales spread. 3,000 words. Another update completed. There are still 2 10,000 reward bonuses and 2-month ticket bonuses left. Raise your hands high and spin in place to ask for a guaranteed monthly ticket. Thanks to @bookfriend 2021080222075236 for the reward of 5,000 starting coins. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 757. Chapter 756. Gretel, who has done everything, is disliked. Master Nordmark said that people who have been injected with therapeutic drugs are not allowed to drink alcohol to avoid danger. Master Dumfries held this flag high, ordered the tavern owner to take away all the drinks, and ordered the people under the mountain not to provide alcohol to the Mithril district. In order to ensure that he didn't miss any wine, he even sent 2 bottles of wine in his wooden house back to Nevis. The dwarves complained. Complaints were complaints, and Master Dumfries was surprised to find that they actually behaved. They are mainly dwarves who need injections of medicine. Most of them are middle-aged or above, and they are highly respected among dwarves. For their own safety, the other dwarves were willing to endure it. Isn't it just 7 days? Yes, Gretel left a week's worth of medicine and trained Vigeland and Master Dumfries on intramuscular injection methods, how to disinfect, how to extract the medicine, how to choose the injection site, and how to inject. Anyway, this is simple and any spellcaster can learn it. Then Gretel left. We have made an appointment to see you in 7 days. During these 7 days, the dwarves in the Mithril district are prohibited from drinking alcohol. Of course, considering that the weather is getting hotter and the forging tasks are getting heavier and heavier, Master Dumfries specially applied to the Parliament to open an unlimited supply of soda water. You can't really kill 1 or 2 people, right? Although dwarves are as strong as rocks, even if they are rocks, they will crack if heated too much. Greet arrived on time 7 days later. The patients were examined one by one, including physical examination, auscultation, sputum bacterial culture, chest X-ray, and even a CT scan. Of course, the CT results must be taken back and processed by Moss before they can be released. However, other inspection results have basically confirmed that their condition has improved. Look, the bacterial culture results show that the germs in your body are much less than before, Gretel happily pointed out to the patients. Just use the medicine for a few more days to consolidate it, and then you should be fine. Of course, the mines and living areas need to be completely sterilized. You don't want to be infected again after you recover, right? So you can drink in a few days. The dwarves were more concerned about this. Gretel's face darkened. No. No. No, not only is it not possible during this time, but there won't be a large supply of ale in the next 2 years. Gretel raised a finger to stop the dwarves from questioning, and said slowly. The Great Famine is coming. The Parliament has issued an order prohibiting the use of grain to make wine. If you want to drink, the only options are fruit wine and imported ale. But I'm not used to drinking fruit wine, the following continued, ale is expensive. In the shops in the city, the price has doubled during this period. Gretel knows this. Parliament slashed import duties on alcohol but significantly increased commercial taxes. As one comes in and one comes out, and the big merchants who are qualified to do import business are stocking up on goods, preparing to sell them at a high price next year, the wine on the market must be both expensive and scarce. Then there's nothing we can do. Under the current situation, the Parliament will definitely have to drastically reduce the supply of ale, and it's impossible to open up the supply. What? There were high and low complaints. Vigeland was fine, and so were the middle-aged dwarves, but Gretel heard 2 young dwarves touching their heads behind the crowd, muttering in a low voice. But we are guests, if we are invited to come over and work, shouldn't we be supplied with enough ale? Gretel. Why do you think I can't see you if you lower your head? I'm so much taller than you. If everyone is standing, I can see from the first row to the last row without tiptoeing. He tried not to look at the young dwarves and stared at the 2 oldest dwarf elders in the front row of the crowd. Especially Master Theon, this old miner who can judge the temperature of magma and accurately fish out the crude mithril ore. Old man, the great famine is coming, he sighed softly. I can guarantee that this news is accurate. More than a month ago, during the process of meditating to advance, I sensed changes in the distance. At the same time, the legendary mage of the prophecy system in the parliament received a warning. Seeing that except for the two dwarf elders, everyone else was a little disapproving, Gretel decided to release some more exciting news. The changes I sensed, the council opened the Star Dome magic array twice and searched for relevant information. My teacher came forward and asked dragon friends to go to distant places to verify. It is already confirmed. The dwarves' faces became serious. Wizard Dumfries stood next to Gretel and looked at him in surprise, but hesitated to speak. Is there so much inside information? Did the Star Dome activate two large magic circles? The legendary mage takes action? Is there anything about the dragon clan here? I don't know anything. Alas, low level means no human rights. These news can be spoken casually to the legendary disciples. For a marginalized person like me, I am afraid that I will have to wait until the great famine finally comes before I can hear the news. His heart was in turmoil. Beside me, Gretel's statement has reached its conclusion. Combining the news from the Great Magic Array and the verification from the Dragon Clan, the prophecy mages have collectively calculated and confirmed that next year, there will be a great famine across thousands of miles of red land. The dwarves breathed heavily. Dozens of dwarves crowded into the room, huffing and puffing, as if a row of bellows were being pulled up in the room. Master Zion took a step forward. We were only informed that the council was preparing for famine. Is it so serious? It's very serious, alas. The parliament must have sent someone to communicate this news with the dwarf royal court. But the information received from a small settlement here is probably not so detailed. No wonder they are clamoring for a drink. The preparations made by the parliament are based on the complete failure of the grain harvest next year. Now, the priests of the god of nature are working day and night to produce food, and the parliament is trying its best to provide spiritual potions. The precious food is gone. A lot of it is used to make wine. The dwarves looked at each other. Even the young dwarves who come to work here are in their 70s or 80s and have personally experienced famine more than once. But will the grain crop be completely wiped out next year? The scale of this famine was much greater than anything they had ever experienced. Master, everyone, Gretel took a deep breath. I think you also know how much food is needed to make wine, right? Of course I know, old Zion nodded calmly. A barrel of ale, a 40-pound barrel, enough for 10 dwarves to drink for a day, requires 10 pounds of barley. You know? Gretel looked at him with surprised eyes. Behind old Theon, a dwarf whose name Gretel could not name whispered. Master Zion is the best brewer here. The ale he brews is famous in the royal court and among the 7 tribes. Gretel. Okay, in this age where handicrafts dominate, it is normal for long-lived dwarves to develop some hobbies on their own. And for a dwarf, if he doesn't do heavy work and eats sparingly, 1 pound of barley a day is enough for one day. Master Zion turned to face the rear, his eyes were majestic, and he scanned all the dwarves present. Everyone, the food of the dwarf kingdom is imported from the parliament all year round. In the current disaster, even if the parliament is willing to take care of its allies, it may be unable to do so. Besides, we must also restrain ourselves and not wantonly waste the help of others. He is the best smelter in the mine and the highest level warrior. Even dwarf spellcasters have received his teachings. At this time, he raised his voice and everyone nodded like garlic. No one dared to object. The old dwarf continued. The voice was deep, majestic, and sonorous. It hit the wall of the room, almost like a crater. In the face of famine, if we drink less for a day, we will save a day of food for our compatriots. Pass on the order, starting from today. Gretel gave the Dumfries wizard a quick wink. Master Dumfries quickly stood up. The council will not stop supplying the dwarf friends with their daily drinking, but will only reduce the amount. Under the current situation, I am very sorry to say that we can only supply 1/10 of the original amount. Of course, sparkling water will always be supplied. I won't let everyone faint from the heat in the mine. Okay, Master Zion nodded solemnly. Everyone's drinking has been reduced to 1/10 of what it was before. Yes. Yes. The dwarves responded unevenly. Next to him, the Dumfries mage, who had been standing all the time, cast an admiring look at Gretel. Is this done? That's it? The difficulty that tormented him to death, Greet ran twice, said a few words, and solved it before his eyes. But having said that, only a mage like Gretel who has a good relationship with the dwarves can make the dwarves believe his words and not have doubts in the first place. Only when a healer like Gretel throws out new potions and forces everyone to abstain from alcohol for a week can the dwarves initially get used to it's not that difficult to abstain from alcohol temporarily. Only legendary disciples like Gretel can get the highest level and most accurate information, and can make the dwarves realize the seriousness of the incident and cooperate obediently. Greet was completely relieved. These dwarves are grumpy and stubborn, and when they look down on you, they really look down on you. But they will definitely do what they promised and will never compromise. He walked out with a smile. The current situation is not good, so please be patient for the time being. When the famine is over and a new batch of barley is harvested, I will definitely invite you to drink until you can't drink anymore. Come on, the little mage doesn't know how to drink at all, Vigilant shouted with a loud laugh. The dwarves, who had been solemn just now, burst into laughter and chattered. That's right, the little mage can only drink half a glass of wine at most. He can't drink our ale at all. Let the big guy drink it for you. It doesn't matter. We don't care. Little mage, when will you grow stronger and at least be able to carry an iron shield? Gretel. Who said I couldn't carry it? When I advanced to the 5th level priest, my body was baptized by the will of the world. At least, I can definitely lift the iron shield. 3,000 words. Half of the extra update is completed. 5,555, across the street from my house in the community, from the front door of a middle school to the back door, and in the community past the back door, a positive result was found. I hope that the community next door to us is not included and we will not be closed for 14 days, my family only has food for 7 days. Crying and asking for tickets to comfort me, I want a guaranteed monthly ticket. Thanks to @1115 for the reward of 1,500 starting coins. Thanks to @Elio for the 100 starting coins. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 758. So little Gretel solved another problem for us. The problem of the mithril mine was completely resolved, and it was only 3 days later that it was conveyed through the layers of people and brought to the review table. The review committee member in charge of the Alchemy Guild in the change department clicked his tongue in surprise when he saw Gretel's name on the report. He's already at level 7, on the other side of the conference table. Old Sam from the plasticity department knocked on the table unhappily. You're at level 7, you're an intermediate mage. You're no longer a child, don't call me Little Greet, Little Greet. Tisk, although he occasionally calls her that in private or when communicating with Gretel alone. But mid-level mages and legendary disciples should have their own dignity and cannot always be treated like children. When you are shouting like this, if you are not careful, you will bully the younger ones. The Lord of Thunder is not here, nor are several of his older disciples. If little Gretel is bullied by the review committee, or harms his interests, wait until the senior officials come back. Tisk tisk. Oh, he's already a 7th level mage. Archmage Grom of Black Crow Marsh sighed with great nostalgia. The first time I saw him, he was still a second-level mage. He was standing outside the mystery lock in the middle of the night, calling for help. In a blink of an eye, he was already at level 7. The term of their review committee members has not yet been completed. That little, well-behaved little guy who was brought here and threatened by them, could be locked up in a conference room to write articles and get promoted. Now, he has become the backbone of the parliament, a level 7 magician and a 5th ring arcanist. But this creates a lot of trouble for us. The jury members of the conjuration department have been immersed in calculations and did not participate in the discussion here. It wasn't until he quickly read the result report that he sighed. I have just verified how much he should be paid for the fertilizer project. With the dwarves involved, the contribution points have to be calculated again. Help. The fertilizer needed to withstand the summerless years is a big project. It can even be said that it is a rare major project in the parliament in recent years that mobilizes the power of all factions. From the legendary mage at the highest level, to the high-level mage, to the apprentice running errands at the lowest level, to the natural god cult working together next door. Among them, I don't know how many people are busy filling the stomachs of the whole country. Everyone's tasks are different and their contributions are different. To evaluate the value of work fairly and impartially, the amount of calculation is huge. It just so happened that Gretel was involved in more than one sub-project. From providing a way to measure land and locking the 3 elements of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, to verifying the effect of ammonia, to tossing out a rough route for artificially synthesizing ammonia. He is everywhere, everywhere. There is not much work to do, but the work you do is very crucial. In every direction, it saves Parliament a lot of manpower, material resources, and time. According to the Parliament's evaluation standards, the person who provides the ideas gets the lion's share, and his contribution ratio is quite high. The problem is that every time Greet messes up something, the council has to urgently adjust the project contribution package. Each sub-project has a dedicated group of people calculating the contribution value. Every adjustment means that several hours, 1 day, or 2 days of work have been wasted, and they have to roll up their sleeves and start over. The magicians who are exclusive to the jury, and whose professions are used to calculate contribution points, now feel dizzy, nauseous, want to vomit, and have several adverse reactions when they hear the name Gret Nordmark. There's no other way, just take it down and let them count again. The conjuration system boss shook his head. After all, we have helped the council solve a problem, and it is a big or small problem that will be very troublesome if not solved. Is this project included in fertilizer production? That's right, the change boss nodded affirmatively. It's a factory that produces ammonia, oh no, nitrogen fertilizer. We order the goods from the dwarves. They have the best craftsmanship and the highest precision in processing things. It allows them to not make trouble and work honestly. It is indeed the best in fertilizer production. The review committee of the conjuration department made a few approvals on the report and threw it down. Immediately, a doll with a round head and a round head slid over, its head opened, and it received the report like a cylinder. The puppet made a series of sound effects, slid out the door, and disappeared. The conference room fell into silence again, and each review committee member was engrossed in doing his own work, until another row of alchemy dolls entered and began to distribute reports one by one. Then, a new report fell from the hands of the alchemy doll to old Sam. A thick stack, it doesn't look like a report, but more like a book. Old Sam only glanced at the cover and put his hand on his forehead. Little Greet has caused trouble for us again. Hey, who said before that you can't call him Little Gretel? 4 of the 8 judges complained in unison. Old Sam read the abstract, read the table of contents, and then scan the contents line by line. Just close the cover and throw it aside. The report whirled and hit the conjuration magician's desk. Hey, medical matters are your business. Why is it my business again? The conjuration master muttered and opened the report again. This report is basically a detailed report of what Gretel did in the mithril mine. The first part, the research and development process of streptomycin and the bacteria that can be killed. Part 2, clinical experimental report of streptomycin. Part 3, the therapeutic effect of streptomycin on dwarves, with bacterial culture test results, auscultation, chest X-ray and CT results. Part 4, estimates of the incidence of dwarf pneumonia, tuberculosis, and other diseases during the previous trip to the dwarf royal court. Part 5, conjecture on the large-scale export of streptomycin to the dwarf kingdom. A guess, just a guess. The magician in white robe threw the report on the table and complained to the sky. What does this little guy think of us? There is no output, no price, no how much it can be sold to the dwarf kingdom, no one. Forget it, the next part is the focus of his complaint. As for selling medicine to the dwarf kingdom, it can influence their policies and make their prohibition on alcohol smoother. He was completely concerned about the high-level mage's demeanor, so he didn't roll his eyes on the spot. This little guy would rather spend 1,000 words talking in circles about this kind of suggestion involving a diplomatic plan than mention a word directly. Is this using us as tools? To put it bluntly, we will do the rest of the work. Then you can't blame him. Archmage Grom took out the report, read it quickly, and defended Gretel with a smile. Production needs to be discussed with the Order of the God of Nature, pricing and other matters must also be discussed with them. Diplomatic plans, etc. Although the little guy visited the dwarf kingdom and received a delegation, in fact, he is not a professional of. Come on. Several committee members nearby complained in unison. If you speak for him again, he won't be from Black Crow Swamp. Bang 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 bang. Skulls, leg bones, ribs, ink bottles, and books were once again flying all over the sky. Complaints are complaints, but things still have to be done. What's more, Greet's suggestion was indeed good. Everyone had to break down the task and arrange it part by part. The matter is not big, but it involves many departments and is of high level. Everything needs to be discussed, considered, claimed by different departments, different schools of thought, collaborated with each other, argued with each other. Just for this report, the review committee members spent a long time salivating. After the discussion finally ended, the member of the protection department glanced at the form and suddenly said, "By the way, how many contribution points will the council pay to the little guy this time?" Instant silence. The member of the conjuration department turned over a page of the record book, mentally calculated the contribution of the report just now, and gave a vague number. 1,000. Why so few? Old Sam and Archmage Grom said in unison. As soon as the words were spoken, they turned to look at each other, glaring at each other like black-eyed chickens. On both sides of the long table, several other review members who had nothing to do with themselves turned their heads silently. It has become a routine scene for Black Crow Swamp and Thunderhorn to fight each other over little Gretel's identity. Just be calm, just be calm. The member of the conjuration department couldn't calm down. Those two people were fighting each other, but in the end they still had the same ambition and would come to question him. He took the time to sort out his thoughts and knocked on the table. The current estimated contribution value is related to soil measurement and solving the problem of mithril zone. As for the problem of ammonia production and the problem of selling new medicine to the dwarf kingdom, he pulled out two pieces of information and pushed them forward. The Order of the God of Nature estimates that without using magic to induce growth, just using fertilizer can increase production by more than 50%. If the cost of fertilizer can be reduced, fertilizer alone will be a very profitable business. However, nitrogen fertilizers need to be produced in large-scale installations and guarded by magicians. Phosphate fertilizers need to be transported across the ocean and brought back from the small islands of the Storm Islands. Potash fertilizers need to toss ores. Food is certainly a top priority, but spellcasters still need to explore how to reduce costs as much as possible. Our current idea is to turn it into a project. If it is profitable, the relevant people will share the profits together. As one of the key providers of technology, Nordmark Master will definitely get an appropriate share. Of course, how much is the specific share? This project is not finished yet, so don't rush to settle it. Besides, maybe it would be better for everyone until the legendary mage behind him comes back and then slowly discuss the share, right? The same thing is true about the new drug. Anyway, Master Nordmark can't expand production capacity for the time being, and the Order of the God of Nature can't spare it. Expanding production, valuation, and negotiation all take time. Archmage Grom pulled back his hood and hid himself in the shadows, seeming to accept this statement. Old Sam was lost in thought for a while and asked suddenly. Then when these projects are put into operation, won't he no longer be short of money? With this guy's character, if he is not short of money, God knows what he will spend. It's okay, he wants a lot beside him, the great mage of the transformation department said calmly. I remember that he hasn't paid back the money for the tower spirit yet. Even if he has paid it off, now that I have the tower spirit, I want to get another mage tower and slowly save money. 3,000 words. Another reward of 10,000 UN has been paid off. There are still 3 short of adding the monthly ticket. Please give me monthly votes, recommendation votes, book reviews, and all kinds of things. And, the vegetable packs have arrived. It's no problem if I can survive for 7 days. Hold out your chest. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 759. Greed had not considered how much money he could make from nitrogen fertilizer and streptomycin. Nitrogen fertilizer, or nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium compound fertilizer, is the basis for increasing agricultural production. The improvement of agricultural productivity is the starting point of everything. When the world has sufficient surplus food, more labor can be freed up and allowed to participate in industrial production. Only by entering the process of industrialization can the strength of the parliament and the kingdom be improved by leaps and bounds. Only by stably suppressing the several countries across the strait can Greed's life be better. Even if it is just to feed more poor people, it is not that important if he makes less money on the nitrogen fertilizer project. As for streptomycin, streptomycin. How do you want to make money from a drug that has just started phase 3 clinical trials? Even if it is launched on a large scale, it will have to wait until the results of the 3rd phase of clinical trials are available. Therefore, when the magician sent by the medical branch was fully prepared and wanted to negotiate the price with him, what he saw in front of him was a thick stack of writing paper. Produced by tailing, all printed on A4 paper, with clear handwriting and regular layout. What's this? The person sent by the medical branch was Dylan Kruger, a level 9 magician who was a disciple of Archmage Morton. At this moment, he lowered his head and looked at the plan in front of him, then turned his head and looked at it. The document was almost a finger thick, and his eyes almost bulged out. Is this the contract you prepared? Are you a devil? Except for devils, I have never heard of any race writing such a thick contract. Gretel chuckled. He pointed at the cover. On the parchment cover, the title lit up. Streptomycin Phase 3 Clinical Trial Protocol Dwarf Version. So what is this? As a level 9 mage, Dylan Kruger is one of those rare people who accepts disciples not based on talent, but only on character. There are a bunch of disciples and grandsons below. Although most of them are not very high level, he can pull up a medical team by himself. However, for a 5th ring arcanist like Gretel, his status is still slightly lower. As long as this man is not out of his mind, he will not be rude to Gretel. However, when Dylan Kruger saw this thick book, although he tried his best to remain polite, he just refrained from swearing. Well, I won't charge for this batch of medicine sent to the dwarf kingdom, Gretel said with a smile. The Magic Council only needs to bear the production cost of the medicine, whether it is materials or the production cost of the natural priest. However, you must record the effects of these medicines on dwarves for me. Dylan Kruger, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. The medical branch sent him here mainly considering 2 points. One is that Archmage Morton has a relatively close relationship with Gretel. The second is that he has a lot of manpower. The medical magicians Gretel wants here do not pay attention to level, but to quantity. In short, it makes work easier. Whether he leads the team out by himself or lets his apprentice lead the team out, this decision must be made by himself. Gretel's cooperation plan must be personally evaluated by him before he can arrange manpower. But the problem is that your request is too detailed. Come, take a look, Gretel urged him with a smile. If you have any questions, you can ask me now. If you go to the Blackgate Peninsula and want to send news across the sea, it will be troublesome. Magician Kruger took a breath and opened the book in front of him, or rather the brick book. The first page is the title, The Main Researcher, Gretel Nordmark, and there is an empty space after it. The sponsor, Oak Grove Medical Clinic, also has an empty spot in the back. From the looks of it, it's for the medical branch to fill it out themselves, so they can fill it out however they want. Well, not bad. This kind of cooperation seems very sincere. Turning another page, a long catalog came into view instantly. 1 Program Summary. 1.1 Overview. 1.2 Research Flow Chart. 1.3 Research Schedule. 2 Introduction. 3 Research Purpose and Endpoint. 4 Research Design. 4.1 Overall Design. His eyes swept vertically. From the top line to the bottom line, the directory has just been extended from 1.1 to 8.3.1. Turning another page, it extends from 8.3.2 to 11. 2 whole pages. The table of contents alone takes up 2 full pages. The Kruger wizard shuddered. The dignity of a level 9 magician made him swallow the words, "You are trying to exhaust me to death," with all his strength. Hold it, this is just a table of contents. If you read the back part, I really can't understand it anymore. He looked down sullenly. Turning another page, the summary section lists more than a dozen items. Title, Study Overview, Purpose, Endpoints, Study Population, Stage, Description of Study Intervention, Study Duration, Visit Duration. What? Do patients need to be grouped according to gender, age, occupation, occupational level, general health status and geographical location? Why is it so annoying? Then they must be divided into groups. Greet spread his hands innocently. What he took out was the NIH FDA clinical trial protocol template, which was shared with him by a classmate in the pharmacy field in his previous life. It came with as many as 30 WeChat voices of 1 minute each. The classmate joined a pharmaceutical company and was ordered to draft a clinical trial application according to this template. When he shared it, he had been working hard on this thing for half a month, and half of the thin hair left on his head had fallen out. The classmates praised him one after another. A classmate who went into medical beauty danced particularly happily. He said that after he completes the project, he can come over for hair transplantation, and for the sake of his classmates, he will be given a 20% discount. In Gretel's previous life, he spent 10 minutes reading this 58-page document and deeply mourned the hair on his classmate's head. Unexpectedly, after traveling to another world, he would actually need to focus on this document and write a plan. I don't know if the treatment has any effect on the hair follicles on the top of my head. Maybe not. If there were, the proportion of Mediterraneans and bald heads in the mage group would not be so large. Of course, clinical experiments still need to be done, especially clinical experiments among dwarves. It is rare to have a large-scale humanoid group that can do clinical drug experiments, so we must not let it go. If we don't group them into groups, how do we know how effective the drug is for people of different genders and ages? What if people who are too young just can't use it? For example, quinolone antibiotics in previous lives can affect bone development and are contraindicated for patients under the age of 18. For example, a large number of drugs are labeled contraindicated for pregnant women. Greed had reasonable suspicion that they just didn't do clinical experiments on pregnant women. However, when conducting phase 3 clinical trials on pregnant women, it is difficult to pass the ethical review. What if high-level professionals are too resistant to drugs, and these drugs will be automatically rejected when they enter their bodies, and they will be useless? What if the drug has different effects on warriors and casters? What if the same dose of the drug is effective enough on casters, but has no effect on warriors? Gretel bent his eyes and tried to show the most friendly smile. After Anavia developed this drug, it has already undergone 2 phases of clinical trials at the infectious disease hospital. But you also know that at the infectious disease hospital, they are all poor, all paupers, all non-professionals. Whether it can be used by professionals requires additional testing. Please, please. These data are really important. He folded his hands and bowed to Master Cruz. You must have more experience in doing experiments than I do, and you must know that if the experiment is not done according to standard methods, the data cannot be used. Please make sure that the people you send follow this standard format. Kruger wizards have 1 head and 2 heads. He calmed down and silently turned the document from beginning to end, then back again, and continued to read it carefully. It is undeniable that many places in it are written in great detail, which he had not thought of. Randomly select subjects. Double-blind experiment. Placebo control. These, can I copy a copy back? Gretel made a please gesture. Of course you can. Take this experimental plan back and you can copy it however you want, or use it in other experiments. But, my experiment must be completed according to my requirements equals. Understood. So that's the price. Use an experimental plan in exchange for the manpower of the medical branch, and exchange for 1, or several, magicians to travel across the ocean and stay among the dwarves to conduct experiments. I have to say, this reward is really exciting. As long as there is a big boss with independent research capabilities, everyone will want to get a copy. On the contrary, the young mages working below need to communicate with the dwarves one by one. Low-level mages who will not be qualified to host experiments for decades will definitely feel annoyed when they see these detailed and trivial requirements. I know. Master Kruger sighed and covered his forehead. I'll take this plan back and report it to the teacher. Maybe I need to lead the team myself. I don't know if the teacher will let me go. If he is released, the magicians who have been in contact with him and those who come to him for treatment on a daily basis must be notified and arranged. Referrals should be made, medical advice should be given where needed, and long-term care is needed. The situation should be explained clearly to the person taking over. There are so many things that need to be done. Then it's up to you, Greet responded simply. He quickly took out another wide, flat box. This is the letter I wrote to the Dwarf King. You know, I participated in their king selection ceremony. Below is the letter from the dwarf elders in Mithril district, as well as their treatment and inspection reports. With these, it will be easier to convince the dwarves. Master Kruger forced a smile, thanked him and took the box. Although thank you very much for thinking of this in advance and making my work more convenient, but this kind of natural blame-shifting approach really makes people, well. For the content of clinical trials in this chapter, refer to the NIHFDAIND/IDE Phase 2 and Phase 3 Clinical Trial Protocol Template, Chinese translation. This translation was completed by the Clinical Trial Center of Peking University First Hospital. The author will order 3,000 copies immediately. Put your hands together and bow, please support me by subscribing. If you want to subscribe, please subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Just a few orders away, and this book will get the premium batch. Please support. If you can get high quality products today, the author will give you 10 additional updates. Thanks to @Uchiha Kentetsu for the 1,600 starting coin reward. Congratulations to everyone for saving another 10,000 UN reward. Including what needs to be repaid today, I still owe 4 more updates. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 760. Greed happily threw off the task of clinical experiments. Let him stay up all night, oh no, let him dictate the outline, and Tailing stay up all night writing the experimental plan, no problem. Let him work hard on medical research to find a cure for a disease, no problem, that's what he loves. There is no problem in letting him raise bacteria, penicillin, and vaccines. Even though he is a clinical major, not biology or pharmacy, he can still do it with gusto. However, he had to go all the way to the Dwarf King's court, hide in that big cave that was not hygienic at all, and measure the dwarves' heartbeats, listen to their breathing, take x-rays, and inject drugs dozens or hundreds of times a day. Never. This is what little doctors do. And it's a whole group of little doctors. These complicated and trivial matters should be tasks that an attending physician can complete with a group of residents and interns. Well now, someone finally did it. Greed hummed a song and started her daily routine. Study magic. Ray deflection, any door, shelter, especially the most important arcane eye, you must learn all of them. Of course, you must also master the various defensive magic, escape magic, and attack magic required by the teacher. Gretel knew very clearly that the Lord of Thunder had tolerated him for a long time. Now that he is on a long trip, it's not easy to check his homework. If he still can't learn a few protective spells after returning from this trip, he may be hung up and beaten by the teacher. The current progress is that the shelter is fully proficient and the portable operating room has doubled in size. Biolocation I have learned it, and now I can locate parasites, but locating bacteria needs further research. Any gate is really a bit difficult. Gretel has not studied space magic before, and he has to learn teleport prediction and analysis teleport gate along the way. If you want to practice it to the teacher's satisfaction before the teacher comes back, you probably don't have to hope. So Greet, which one do you want to pick? Aurora asked without raising her head while immersed in the spell list. If it is good to have a high-level tower spirit, Moss can at least project the spell list collected by Thunderhorn and let them choose on their own. If it is some relatively low-level spells, you can also directly communicate with the Thunder Tower through the Tower Spirit to retrieve spell models for learning. I think it's better to learn attack spells. Gretel shrank his neck. The teacher's task is to be proficient in at least one of each type of attack magic: ice, fire, electricity, acid, force field, and sound wave. As a magician, even if it is a medical spell, attack magic can be used, but it cannot be used without it. If you are unlucky and need to teach an idiot a lesson, you have to have 2 ways to control the situation, right? I think you don't need to choose the fire element, Aurora complained without hesitation. Gretel nodded silently. There is pure oxygen and explosives. When he advanced to the 5th level mage, he had already pushed the power of the fireball to above the 4th level. It is estimated that the teacher will not do anything to him if he postpones the study of fire magic for the time being. Otherwise, if he tries again with range 200 meters, explosion radius 300 meters, he won't be so lucky to have a teacher to save him. I don't think you have to rush to learn the ice and acid systems. Gretel shrugged. I think it shouldn't be difficult to stack third-level spells to fourth-level power. For the cold ball, you can use liquid nitrogen as the casting material to increase its power. For the acid ball, you can also use aqua regia and hydrofluoric acid as the casting materials respectively to try to upgrade it. Greet estimated that it would be possible to upgrade to one level at the third to fourth level. So what are you going to choose? Aurora turned her head and looked at him with bright eyes. The colored light from the magic light screen fell on his face, making his cheeks look oddly strange. Force field? Sound wave? I can give you some advice about force field. Sound wave is really not good. I'm not familiar with sound wave myself. Why don't you just choose thunder and lightning? I am the most familiar with thunder and lightning. The Lord of Thunder is back. If you choose electric shock ball, will be happy. Greet himself also wanted to choose the lightning branch. In any case, the output intensity still needs to be improved. He never wanted to encounter that direct current cardioversion for the first time, electric shock claws with unknown jowls. What if there happens to be a patient with ventricular fibrillation? Extracardiac compression is really not as useful as electrical cardioversion. Gretel is gearing up. With his previous experience in dismantling magic configurations, Aurora's enthusiastic suggestions, and Archmage Carlyle for advice, he easily learned the fourth-level electric shock ball. But the first day Aurora saw him start practicing, she went crazy. Crack. Fail. Crack. Failed again. Crack. It still failed. Where did you fail? Aurora was spinning around, her cheeks reflected like a ghost by the blue-white electric light, and the white light in her blue eyes danced. It's obviously very successful. The attack power and attack distance all meet the requirements. Except that the attack is too obvious and easy to be discovered by the opponent, but the electric ball flies very fast, and they can't avoid it if they find it. I don't care if the attack is too obvious. After all, the possibility of me personally going into battle to hit someone is still a bit low. Gretel pointed to the measuring instrument that Aurora used standing on the corner of the wall. The output intensity is too high and the duration is a bit too long. Output intensity. Aurora choked in her throat, clutching her chest and coughing for a long time. After finally catching his breath, he immediately lowered his voice and roared at Greet. Of course the output intensity must be high. This is an attack spell. An attack spell. What are you going to do if you don't increase the output intensity? He suddenly stopped and looked around quickly. Thank God, this is in my own mage tower, and there is no one else around. Otherwise, if the follower talks to the boss like this, once word spreads, the entire Thunderhorn will be laughed at. Aurora took 2 quick breaths and continued to spray. Any lightning mage wants to be able to summon lightning at will, to be able to summon lightning as powerful as thunder falling from the sky. If you reduce its output intensity and shorten its duration, what are you trying to do? The teacher will definitely not agree with what you said, Greet complained back with a straight face. The Lord of Thunder has already mastered lightning. As long as you see the docile appearance of lightning around him, you can imagine that control is definitely the right direction for the development of the lightning system. Besides, senior sister Philby can already feel the electron flow, and she is probably not far away from precise control of electrons. Aurora, are you sure you don't want to go in the subtle direction? The name Lord of Thunder made Aurora shrink back. Gretel briefly talked about the development direction of several big bosses, and then he squatted silently in the corner. It seemed that an illusory sign had been erected on his forehead. I want to be quiet. As for who Jing Jing is, that is another topic, not very important. Gretel continued to concentrate and practice his electric spells. DC cardioversion converts 60 Hz alternating current into high-voltage direct current of 47 kVd, and discharges it to the heart within 24 ms, with a power of up to 36400 joules. What he needs to do now is to break down the tasks and try them one by one. It's not difficult to lower the power. You can use relatively low-level electric spells at most, but reducing the duration. 2 to 4 milliseconds. 2 to 4 milliseconds. Gretel muttered and continued practicing. He switched the 4th level electric shock ball to the 1st level electric claw and continued to practice control desperately. Freed. Finish. Duration, 0.5 seconds, which is 500 milliseconds. Freed. Finish. Duration, 0.3 seconds. Freed. Finish. Duration, 0.22 seconds. Greet thought for a while and felt that he couldn't continue practicing stupidly like this. He lowered his head to disassemble the spell model, combined the encyclopedia of runes given by the teacher and the configurations he had disassembled in his past research, and pulled out a module about duration. Increase. Reduce. Increase. Reduce. After going back and forth, I drew 7 or 8 spell configurations and then tested again. This time, the duration has been reduced to 0.01 seconds, which is 10 milliseconds. It works. Add a configuration to control the duration, automatically control the spell duration, effective. Then, next, we must reduce the duration of this magic to the minimum. Greet continued to roll up his sleeves and began to toss. After 3 consecutive days of testing and modification, he finally controlled the lightning casting time to within 2 milliseconds. Well, next, we have to grasp the timing of casting the spell. Greet climbed to the top of the mage tower and set up a receiving board next to Moss, connected to the core of the mage tower. Taking a deep breath, he told the tower spirit, "Moss, please release the previously stored electrocardiogram. I will release the electric claw according to the rhythm. You can help me record it? The time point of each electric claw passing will be marked on the electrocardiogram." "Okay, boss," Moss replied solemnly. The light curtain flew up, and the R wave, P wave, Q wave, and S wave of the electrocardiogram moved forward one wave after another according to a fixed rhythm. Gretel stared at the electrocardiogram on the light screen, and mentally activated the spell configuration of the electric claw. With a slight movement, the magic flew out. With a crack sound, the blue-white electric light gently hit the receiving board and was silently sucked in by the center of the mage tower. On the light screen, an eye-catching red dot instantly appeared. Greet looked over impatiently. "Very good, not to say it is accurate, at least it is very wrong. If the current flows through the heart at this point in time, defibrillation is impossible, but it is very possible to make the heart rhythm more irregular. Come again, that time just now, it was just my reaction that was slower. Concentrate your energy and calculate the lead time, and you might be able to succeed." Crack. 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 Crack dash. Very good. On the electrocardiogram waveform, the red dots are scattered and completely randomly distributed. There were even 2 times when the ventricle was in the vulnerable period. Even if there was no ventricular fibrillation would occur. Why is DC cardioversion so difficult? There are still 8 left to order. Order all 8. There are only 8 full orders left to achieve the high-quality product. Readers who have been chasing me here, please subscribe to the full version if you want to, and order a few more chapters if you read the pirated version. Please help me rush forward. If the order reaches 3,000 tonight, 10 more chapters will be added as a reward. If you can't arrive tonight, there will be no extra 10 extra updates. Thanks to @pingming. By you, @Captain Fakuahe for the 100 starting coins reward. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 761. Gretel practiced hard, and in the end, he was only sure of one thing. The timing of direct current cardioversion was not something he, a level 7 mage, could control manually. The window period is too short. The normal heart rate of a human being is between 60 and 100 beats per minute, that is, once every 0.6 seconds to every 1 second. In atrial fibrillation, the heartbeat can reach 150 to 500 beats per minute. At its fastest, there is one heartbeat every 0.12 seconds. During this heartbeat, the waveforms presented by the electrocardiogram are P wave, PR segment, QRS complex with the largest amplitude, ST segment, and T wave, and QT interval. Discharge needs to be synchronized with the R wave. This time window may be as short as 4.8 milliseconds. The reaction speed of the human brain and nerves, I remember the treatment in my previous life said, is 30 milliseconds. Even if you advance to level 7 mage and your mental power and reaction ability are strengthened, you still won't be able to touch this obstacle. Greet let out a long sigh. He tapped the crystal ball at the center of the mage tower. Moss, play the electrocardiogram again. Then, every time the R wave peak comes out, change the R wave waveform lines to red. Boss, what is R wave? Greet gave him an indication, which was the narrowest and highest tip on the electrocardiogram. Moss was silent for about 5 seconds and immediately answered. Okay, boss. The light screen flickered again. The wavy electrocardiogram moved forward in a regular pattern. Greet stared at the screen. When the peak of each R wave came out, the line must be changed to red, and then changed back when the peak of the wave was over. Very good. Let's just say that the tower spirit's reaction speed is better than that of humans. In previous lives, there were computers, high-speed computing chips, and automatic surface defibrillators. Before this, doctors wanted to use electric shock defibrillation to save the heart. Basically, it was a matter of betting on probability. Gretel stood up happily, spread out the blank scroll, and began to copy spells. Well, this one is for an electrocardiogram, and this one is for a modified version of the electric claw. After copying, he spread it out in front of the tower spirit. Moss, can you record these two spells? A ray of light fell on the spell scroll, sweeping across it inch by inch from beginning to end. Moss was flat, and a brisk voice immediately rang out. Entry completed, boss. Can you cast the electrocardiogram spell on me? As long as there is authorization from the boss. Greet readily gave the authorization. Then, he saw his electrocardiogram. Bang, 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 the waveform is regular and perfect, the heart rate is 55 beats/minute. The strength of this body that has undergone a major improvement is indeed quite good, and even the heart rate has reached the level of an athlete. Gretel silently gave himself a thumbs up. Then he continued to give orders to Tailing. Moss, according to my electrocardiogram waveform, activate the electric claw spell every time the R wave peak appears, and hit it on the receiving board. Don't hit me. Hit the receiving board. Of course, Boss Moss still has the same electronic sound without any ups and downs, but the distance between each word and each word is almost doubled. The tower spirit will never attack its master. Gretel felt that if this tower spirit had a face, it would definitely show him the unhappiness on its face. Okay, Moss Greet pretended not to hear the emotion in his voice and gave the order briskly. Record the time of each shock and mark it on the electrocardiogram. 1, 2, 3, start. Crack. 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 Blue-white electric light shone on the dark receiving board. The corners of Gretel's lips curled up. Tailing automatically releases electrocardiogram magic and electrical cardioversion. This treatment mode works. However, it is obviously impossible for tearing to serve as an automatic defibrillator. If a patient with ventricular fibrillation is dragged to the mage tower for rescue, he will probably die on the way there. The DC cardioverter must be made portable, preferably miniaturized. Moss, I said, remember, Gretel lazily ordered. If you want to build a mobile electrocardioversion facility, there are two ways to go. One is to try to connect two magics together and merge them into one. Let the magic identify the R-wave crest, automatically trigger the electric claw, and land on the patient's chest wall at a fixed point. The second is to make a magic instrument and burn the linkage between electrocardiogram and electric claw into it. The center of the magic instrument can be a magic crystal or something else. As long as it can intercept a small part of the tower spirit's program, it can control the prop and automatically defibrillate. Did you write it down? Write it down. Boss Moss diligently handed over a large stack of draft paper. Boss, do you want to start designing now? Ah, it's so nice to have a tower spirit to take care of your life. Satisfied, Gretel pulled up a table and sat down, and began to design a new magic. After the identification and judgment of defibrillable heart rhythm, it is recommended that the user defibrillates quickly and the function can be slowly added. Anyway, the EED machines in the previous life were added slowly. He lowered his head and scribbled on the paper to make a rough draft, recording ideas for new magic. Well, the first step is to unleash the magic of EKG. In the second step, the user determines whether defibrillation is needed. If necessary, activates the second magic. The third step is automatic detection of magic. If the R wave appears, the electric claw will be triggered. I'm not a programmer. He threw the endless ink pen aside and wailed loudly. This kind of if, then judgment triggering method looks like writing a computer program. I am a doctor, not a programmer. How to write conditional trigger magic, and how to connect magic configurations. Greet tried hard to search his memory, and wrote down 1 scroll, 2 scrolls, and 3 scrolls, but still couldn't get the point. He threw away the pen in frustration and leaned back on his seat. No more writing. Go check out the book in the library at Thunder Point tomorrow. Hey, it would be great if the teacher was here. The teacher could at least throw a stack of reference books to him. Moss, grab a rabbit and a fixed plate to fix the rabbit. I want to do animal experiments. Animal experiments can only be done by staying close to Tolling, which is simply too troublesome. One day, he will renovate this mage tower and get a sub-center in each laboratory to help him control magic. Gretel calculated for a long time before he got the current intensity that should be used to perform DC cardioversion on the rabbit. Turning around, the invisible servant was already carrying the rabbit cage and waiting for a long time. The rabbit was chirping and screaming, and the stench filled the cage. Gretel, Moss, next time I'm calculating, could you please ask the invisible servant to fix the rabbit, shave it off, and disinfect it? Don't even have to clean up the rabbit poop. Okay, boss. Shall I do it now? Forget it, I'll do it. Greet quickly fixed the rabbit, prepared the skin, disinfected it, and cast the hypnotic magic. After thinking about it, it was better to deliver electric shock directly from the chest wall instead of opening the chest immediately. He hooked up the electrocardiogram magic to the rabbit, buried electrodes on the chest wall, and connected the direct current. 1, 2, 3, press the switch. Unfortunately, the current is too large, and it seems that the result is not atrial fibrillation. Greet inhaled and exhaled, lowered his head and quickly calculated the approximate power, adjusted the coil, and turned it on again. Well, it should be okay this time. Very good, atrial fibrillation. Moss. That spell just now. Lightning fell in response. Gretel trembled all over and his hair stood up straight. Moss, the next time you use electric shock for defibrillation, remember to give a warning, count down to 3 seconds. The electric defibrillation is about to be released, please stay away from the patient. 3, 2, 1. Moss moves too fast. Before he could let go, the electricity went off. Fortunately, he always wears a full set of defenses, mage armor, cold and heat resistance, and elemental resistance. Otherwise, if the current from this electric claw falls on him, he will be electrocuted. Okay, boss. Gretel took 2 hard breaths. Looking at the rabbit again, it seems that the calculated current is still a bit off. Not only was the rabbit not defibrillated successfully, but its vitality became even weaker. Moss, catch another rabbit and bring it up. Greet threw 2 healing spells at the experimental rabbit and stared at the electrocardiogram, watching it recover little by little. After a while, the door of the mage tower opened wide, and Bernard quickly walked in carrying 2 cages of rabbits and stood quietly to the side. Greet conducted 10 experiments in a row. Although the success rate of the experiment is not high, he at least proved one thing. Using a certain intensity of current to pass through the rabbit's heart at the right time can restore the heart to normal beating. Very good. When the teacher comes back, this research should be a good assignment. Gretel, who was thinking like this, completely forgot that the Lord of Thunder required him to skillfully release attack magic, not to make an electric defibrillator. Ah, Bernard, please carry the rabbits down. The disappointment on Bernard's face was visible to the naked eye. Gretel didn't even need to ask, he knew that he must have thought that there would be rabbits to eat today. But it's a pity that a bunch of healing spells were released on each rabbit to try to bring them back. Gretel continued to improve his research with confidence, using 64 rabbits and writing a long paper. A few days after finishing the paper, he received a message from Archmage Carlyle. The teacher is back. The regular meeting will be held as usual next Monday, don't forget it. Yeah. The teacher is finally back. There is someone I can ask for advice, and there is a book list I can ask for. He has been browsing left and right in Thunderhorn's library these days, but he has gained nothing. Early on Monday morning, Gretel was waiting at the teacher's door. At 8:30 in the morning, people attending the meeting began to arrive one after another. When Gretel turned his eyes, his jaw almost dropped. Senior brother Baebo, senior sister Philby. What are you doing? Why do you look so smoky? Hey, little Gretel, the senior brother's big, thick palm slapped Gretel heavily on the shoulder. It's a pity that you didn't go this time. Teacher led us to fight a big battle. Little Gretel, hurry up and advance. Yesterday, the final order was 2998. Just too short, crying loudly. There are no extra 10 chapters. Snort. Thanks to @Crazy Talker for the 100 starting coins reward. I took a look at the history of the development of cardiac defibrillation. The earliest record was in 1788, and then theory and practice continued to progress. In 1941, a defibrillator was made to perform internal defibrillation. Synchronized electrical cardioversion was invented in 1961. The big guys really dare to do anything.